Nazism, racism, eugenics, all things that fall under the umbrella of fascism. I am giving you this speech today so that you, the viewer, can understand what fascism is and to possibly identify it. I will describe to you what fascism is and its characteristics, as well as how it came to be, and finally, its possible reflections in current day society. But before we learn about it, we have to define fascism and note how it is seen in countries. Fascism is a political and social movement to restore the unity, energy, and purity of a country that has deemed its liberal democracy to have failed. The 14 characteristics of fascism were defined by Umberto Eco in his book, Fascism. I will give you 4 of them. Traditionalism, opposition to diversity, identity in race and nationality, and the embracing of machismo, or masculine characteristics. Robert O. Paxton explains in his book, 5 Stages of Fascism, that fascism isn't simply an on or off switch. Instead, there are 5 stages, those being the creation of the movement, the rooting in the political system, an acquisition of power, an exercise of power, and finally, total radicalization. Most democratic countries are in the first stage. However, very few get to the second stage because that requires 2 factors to occur simultaneously. First, perceived weakness by the citizenship on the government. The citizens perceive the government to be weak. And a political deadlock where the right refuses to work with a growing leftist movement. Now, of course, these are all the similarities between fascist countries. It's important to note, though, each fascist country is in some way inherently unique because they target different groups, just like Nazi Germany targeted Jewish people primarily, whereas Benito Mussolini primarily targeted socialists and indigenous people. Now that we know what it is, we can talk about how it came to be. As I said earlier, Nazi Germany is absolutely a fascist country. However, it's not the quintessential fascist country. And Hitler isn't even the quintessential fascist. That would be Benito Mussolini. Why? Because he created it. He created fascism. He created the term and led the first one-party fascist country in the entire world. He was the first to do it. He emphasized nationality over class to strip identity from his citizens. However, he had a very specific idea of what that nationality was, so he could target non-whites because he saw them as a threat to the Aryan race, and dissenting political opinion in the form of socialists. For context, after World War I, there was a major rise in the socialist movement in Italy, which nationalists saw as a threat to security. Mussolini preyed on this by actively encouraging and applauding violence against socialists. Hitler himself, another fascist, was largely influenced by Mussolini. There was a Time article written by Olivia Waxman who said that he wanted pictures with Mussolini, actively asked for autographed pictures. He wrote to Mussolini and tried to meet him constantly. He kind of copied him in the sense that he also tried to create a cult of personality. Now that we know how fascism came to be, we can look at some modern-day reflections of fascism. American traditionalism. We can see American traditionalism everywhere, but most notably in our political sense in slogans of our presidents, specifically Ronald Reagan, "It's morning again in America," and our current president, clearly, "Make America Great Again," an appeal to the past. We also have an identity in race and nationality, specifically when people perpetuate this kind of vague concept of keeping alive the Western civilization, but seemingly never including countries like Mexico and South America, which are just as Western as North America and Western Europe. Also, America has a history of an opposition to diversity, notably in the KKK. Need I explain more? The American Nazi Party, anti-immigrant mentality that has risen since Donald Trump came into office, specifically against Mexicans, and an otherization of Muslims. We can see this in a legal sense in the Muslim ban that Donald Trump passed. We also embrace machismo. We have probably the biggest gun culture in the world, with more guns than any other country and more guns per capita, as well as a history of sexism, not allowing women into positions of power until relatively recently, and having legal discrimination by not passing the ERA. Now that we know the ways in which our current government is possibly fascist, that leads me to my conclusion. I've explained to you what fascism is, its origins relating to Benito Mussolini, and possible reflections in current-day America. I've told you these because I wanted you to be able to identify fascism. Fascism is important. It can lead to monumental changes in a country, and thus it is vital that we understand what it is, recognize when it's taking hold, and know how to react if it ever does.